Welcome to the Burned Out Preacher podcast, where we have frank discussions weekly on ministry struggles and how many of us in the ministry have gone from overwhelmed and exhausted to calm and equipped leaders who love being in ministry. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson, Burnout Prevention Coach for Ministry Leaders. Are you ready to overcome burnout? If your answer is yes, then keep listening. Right. So, welcome back to the Burned Out Preacher podcast. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson, Burnout Prevention Coach, and we are continuing our conversation called It's Time to Talk About Ministry Burnout. I have an amazing guest. Right before I hit record, he was preaching. I was like, let me get started because he was throwing out some gems that all of you need to hear. But let him introduce himself. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Monique. How are you doing? I am. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be your guest today. I'm humbled by the invitation. My name is Donald D. Moore. Some people call me Reverend. Some people call me Reverend Doctor. I don't get hung up on titles. I am the pastor of Mount Carmel Baptist Church. Or let me correct that, because when I got called there, the member said, "You are the pastor of the Mount Carmel Baptist Church in West Philadelphia." I pastor an amazing church with a rich history. I inherited a great situation. I never pastored before now. I'm a native of Wilmington, North Carolina, and being from the South, pastoring in the North. But I've lived in the North for quite some time.
Gotcha.
But from an associate minister to pastoring the Mount Carmel Baptist Church, I inherited a great situation. Inherited 1,600 members, affordable housing, apartment complex, the oldest viable church-related or connected credit union in the city of Philadelphia. We are now 65 years old. We do max personal loans up to $12,000 for the members, and so it's just a great situation. And the only thing I've been tasked with is to not mess it up. So. So it's a privilege. It's a pleasure. It's a burden. It's an opportunity. It's all of that. And I've been the pastor there now 8 years. I left my hospital as a clinical speech language pathologist in voice and swallowing disorders, where I treated patients. I've owned a private practice, so I left there. Started pastoring after completion of my Master's of Divinity. I don't want people to think you just get to willy-nilly bounce around. I've been able to obtain multiple degrees to prepare me for where I am. And I try to use a lot of my background clinically to pastor and lead, as well as navigate ministry. We have nonprofits in the beginning of a redevelopment and community development project. So it's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts. But I would be remiss if I did not say that I have great people around me. I have great people around me, and I let them do their job. I don't feel like I have to do everything. As you can see, my sweatshirt, I wore this intentionally. I proudly wear this Mental Health Club. Got it from Neiman Marcus, by the way. I was surprised to see it there.
Really?
Yeah, but mental and self-care are near and dear to me. My dissertation in organizational leadership was looking at the church as an organization, and if the pastor, the leader, the CEO, whatever term you want to define or characterize them, if he or she, if they're stressed out, how does that impact the organization? So we have to look at the church as an organism. And if the leader is stressed out, burned out, how does that impact the organization?
Thank you.
I intentionally did not seek a D-min, although I have friends who have them. But my area is organizational structure. And when I started my doctoral program, I wasn't even in ministry. I was trending towards organizational and healthcare, like healthcare administration. So I just put it all together, and I try to maintain my sanity in the process.
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? That was, first of all, God bless you. Just So it's funny you mentioned organizational leadership because I was going to go back and get so I got so I work in human resources. I was working in human resources and that's what my degree is in. I wanted to go back and major in organizational leadership because and I wanted to use that to help churches because I thought, man, this is a lot that needs to
There's so much. There's
it's
so
so
many
much.
legalities, and
Yeah.
especially, uh, like I said, I've been blessed and fortunate to be able to do ministry at a level that I never thought was going to be possible. And I started at this level, which is
Yeah, I was gonna
unheard.
say your first church.
So uh, the organizational background definitely does help.
Right.
Uh, Systematic and intentional to have layers of leadership. Uh,
Yeah.
Organizational structure.
Yeah.
I have a full-time staff minister, Dr. Willette Burgess Bryant. She is. I don't have enough words in my vocabulary to describe how she is to me. Then I have the world's best executive minister, Reverend Kenneth Woodson, who has an MBA from the Wharton Business School from University of Penn and
Okay.
give. And let him do what he does, right? And so I let them do what they do, and they take some of the responsibility off of me in a lot of ways. Some things I don't have to deal with. They keep me accountable with maintaining healthy boundaries. So they're helpful. They're
Oh
very
my gosh. Oh goodness. Again, I don't know where to begin because you have said so many things that I see 98.999% of the time is lacking. It's really sad that that is lacking um, in our pastoral roles. That pastors really believe, and I posted this today on Facebook because it is Clergy Month, and so there's this quote going around with pastors, working forever and not taking time off and not spending time with their family and whoa, 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 you need to pray for you. I'm like, no, we don't have that is not a requirement.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
How do you think we got here?
Oh, we got here, I believe, um, from trying to maintain false realities
Yeah,
uh,
I agree.
that we have imposed culturally, right? We've imposed them culturally, and I'm gonna be honest. I think they all started with great intention.
Yeah, yeah,
I think they did,
yeah,
but over
I agree.
time, so my predecessor, the Reverend Dr. Albert F. Campbell, who I love, adore, esteem, and respect to the 10th power. I completed my internship with him in seminary. And then we did kind of like a transitional process some years after my internship, placing me in the seat as the pastor.
Yeah.
And this church still went through their process, but there was a little bit more intentionality how it was done. And so our relationship is not the typical predecessor successor relationship. There's no competition. The church knows that we affectionately say, and the members will say, "There go my two pastors."
I
He
love
retired
that.
2013. I got called there in 2014, and I mean, he's my guy.
I love that.
Generation he represents, uh, he's instilled in me so much, right? But one of the things he said to me that I will never forget, he said, "Donald, listen to me." He said, "Let the people help you."
Yes.
It took me, he pastored 47 and a half years. He said, "I didn't figure that out until 35 years in."
Mm,
And he'll tell you, and he has said publicly, you know, I actually retired 10 years before I retired.
mm-hmm. Mm,
And with that model, right? I think most of the pastors of his generation, that many of our current pastors are trying to live out, is they father the church, but try to pastor the home. Those roles are reversed, right? They
ooh,
They fathered the church, meaning that the emotional real estate, their commitment, their energy was given to the church, and they gave what was left home, right? And so, and the people, they don't have problems with that because they benefit from it.
Exactly.
They benefit from it. So,
Absolutely.
um, and so I think we got here because, be all things to all people, do all things. But I caution people, Jesus did not heal everyone.
Right.
Everyone in the region was not restored.
Mm. Mm, mm.
Um, Oftentimes, the text says Jesus leaving the crowd behind.
Yep.
And even when he left the crowd and he had the 12, all 12 weren't as close as his select few. And so we have to get away from that model. But I think that's how we got here. That was the original point. We got here because we try to live out these false realities where you have to be all things to all people, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
and so I think over time, and what we've seen with burnout, part
Mm.
of my dissertation was in pastors, as pastors try to live out this false reality. And I'm intentional about using the words false
Right.
reality because it
Right.
really doesn't exist.
Right.
Uh, I open up my dissertation, my defense, with showing two successful pastors who committed suicide,
Mm.
and they both were under 45 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if ministry is successful, what does that really look like? How do we define successful ministry? If from the optics, it looks like all the pieces are working, it looks like everything is going well, but the stress and the weight of the world is on them in ways that nobody understood.
Yes.
And so, how do we move beyond pastors killing themselves?
Right.
Right? Their health is disproportionately. Um, if you look at pastors, and if you look at Black pastors,
Oof.
and if you look at Black male pastors, right? Um, what my research showed was that female clergy are able to live a more integrated life
Yep.
than male. And the reason I say integrated, I don't say balance. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's
It's
no way to.
not. Mm-mm.
So how well do we integrate these systems? And so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I was looking for my stats, but the statistics, there was a study, I can't remember how many years ago, but the statistics are crazy in terms of I know the one study I was looking at, it was done, I'm trying to find it now. It was I think it was for African American or AME pastors, and I'm a part of the AME church. And let me find it. The statistics were, I can't say shocking, because we see it, like we see the pastors being ill, we see them with all of these health conditions. So it wasn't shocking, but jarring. I guess I should say that it was to that proportion. So it said that this particular study, one was at the or from the Schaefer Institute.
Hmm.
And they said that 90% of pastors said that they were working 55 to 70 hours per week.
Hmm.
And 50% of them felt unable to handle the demands of the job. But then there was a study, it doesn't say who did it, but it said it was a study of South Carolinian AME pastors. 93% of the pastors were overweight. 68% suffered from hypertension. 35% had two or more chronic conditions, 30% had high cholesterol, and 20% suffered from arthritis and diabetes.
Right. And so that's just a sample population of AME. And
Sample, right?
so similar to that study, Schaefer, they've completed several studies.
Hmm. Hmm.
So more recent numbers, because because I think the numbers you just said for the South Carolinians, there was like 68% of hypertension. So those numbers across the board, right? And I want to say that the first study looked at almost 1,800 pastors.
Yep.
72% are obese and suffer hypertension. 80 some odd percent feel they don't have close friends, which leads to other issues, right? The overweight, 72% of clergy only read their Bibles for doing sermon preparation.
Right.
They don't have a personal devotional life. There's so many, and the numbers don't lie, right? Right, numbers don't lie, and
Right.
um, you have pastors who are suffering from heart attacks. Now, conversely, right, those numbers play out in other areas. So when you look at those numbers, there's a direct correlation between those numbers, right, and increase alcohol and substance abuse because they try to self-medicate because they
Right.
don't know how to deal with issues,
Yep.
right? 38, and this is going back a while, so I want to say it's about 41%. 41% of active clergy are divorced,
Yep.
right? 13% of active clergy have had inappropriate relationship with congregation members.
Yep.
And so I'm not saying or making excuses. What I am saying is that because clergy have not figured out how to manage the issues,
Exactly.
right? They self-medicate, they do all of these harmful things so they can continue to live out this facade, this optic of they have it all together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm proud
Absolutely.
with my congregation. The congregation will tell you, oh yeah, no, pastor has a therapist. No, he'll tell you up front, like, no, pastor has a therapist. And I say, listen, I go to therapy so I don't cuss y'all out, right?
Exactly.
I go to therapy so when you all come to me, right, I need to be in a place where I can manage my own issues without having to take on yours. Um,
Exactly.
I have a sign in my office: your issues will not become my issues.
Right.
Your issues will become my prayer concerns. There's nothing in your life, and I'll be clear, nothing. I will do all I can to help members,
Right.
but I'm not going to lose sleep for members. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to not live my life
Yes.
trying to live out theirs. I'm just not, and they'll know you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But they also know that I love pastoring. I love Mount Carmel with everything that I have. I'm all in, and at the same time, I can be all in, understanding that I am too a whole person who has needs, who has the same stuff y'all deal with. I deal with. I don't get. I don't. I don't get this bypass that I'm catching hell line of life because I'm the pastor.
Come on now.
So no, I mean, yeah, I just got
Come on.
and and pastor y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy you said that. And I'm so happy you said that because you are a pastor. And I feel like other pastors need to hear pastors say that. I rarely, I think out of all the guests I've had, yeah, you and one other pastor actually have clear boundaries and have communicated them, is in therapy, and acknowledged that you are a human being. You're a human being that has human feelings, just like the congregation. And you and one other person,
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
And let me say, what I realized the first 5 years, and I hope pastors and people listening to your podcast, I hope they hear when I say this. The first 5 years, I realized when I after I took um, for the first time I took 4 straight weeks off. Prior to that, I would do a week here, week there, week here, week there, right? Because that's how I did at the hospital. That was my vacation flow at the hospital. And when I took the 4 weeks off, um, I realized something. The church honored my boundaries. I didn't.
Now, see, that's deep.
I didn't.
Yeah.
And so, and the reason why I say that is because
Yeah.
I wrote a letter to the church saying, listen, I'm taking 4 weeks off for the first time, and I need to.
Yeah.
I need to. Um, there's several things that I have to address. I said, I'm tired. I'm tired. And I'm thanking you in advance for not reaching out to me. I will be in contact with the following people as necessary. It was the chair of the trustee board, the chair of the deacon board, and my executive minister.
Yeah.
Those three people, right? If you're not one of these three, I'm not reaching out to you. The deaths gonna come up, they're covered.
Yeah.
Right. And when I came back, because during the time I had a life transition.
Yeah.
Right. I had a personal life transition. And when I came back, and I did that right going in, the pandemic had started. And so when I came back, and several months later, when I made an announcement to the church, it was like the light bulb was going off for so many members, right? They said, it makes sense now. I understand why you needed to go away.
Yeah.
I understand why you needed the break. And then what surprised me was our church members are more in tune with stuff than we give them credit.
Exactly.
Right? And so stuff that I was worried about, I didn't need to worry about. And they said, Pastor, are you taking care of yourself? Make sure you take care of yourself.
That's
And
right.
now I have members texting me, I think you're doing a little too much. You need to slow down.
Yeah.
I have to eulogize a member next week who was in church on the third Sunday of October. Older member, and she after church, she said, Pastor, you were sweating too much up there.
Mm.
Now you take care of yourself. I'm worried about you.
Right.
And then 2 days later, she had a massive stroke. And
Oh,
but I have members who are genuinely concerned.
yeah.
So we don't pastor the same church that the generation before us pastored, and I don't think we realize that.
Exactly.
Members are so in tune with things, and so they will take care of you, but you have to show them and let them know, just like being in a relationship,
Exactly.
what you need and how you need to be cared for.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. I'm so happy you said that, especially with the congregation. The congregations now, it's a more learned congregation. They are, like you said, they're in tune, they have degrees, they can see, they have a lot of knowledge.
um, we're I'm real big on mental health
Mhm.
in in the Black church, right? I preach sermon series on it. My first 3 years as pastor, I had 4 suicides,
Oh my goodness.
all Black males under the age of 50.
Oh,
And so the first one demonstrated that we don't understand, or the church doesn't address it um, enough.
yeah.
So I partnered with some of my members, brought in counselors and therapists, um, uh, giving or providing the space for members to understand um, that mental health is important. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Absolutely.
the narrative of how we describe it. I said, no, no, you're struggling with your mental wellness. You don't have a mental illness because,
Right.
but I brought in, I have the privilege of having a friend, Dr. Allen Wilson, who was renowned therapist on Good Morning America and all that stuff. She's a member at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia. My friend, brother Alan Wallace, the pastor. She and I have formed a really good friendship, and I've brought her in to address mental health issues. And she constantly talks to me about my own mental health and maintaining it. So we have to be intentional. And I think if we have more pastors who embrace it
Yeah.
and talk about it,
Yeah.
what does it mean to deal with suicide in the Black church? Right? What does it mean? How does it look to maintain Jesus of being a fence all around you, and you still might need medications to help the synapses connect for you to be okay?
Yeah.
So I think it's incumbent upon pastors to create that space, not just for the members, but for themselves. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So true. I have spoken to so many pastors on here, and many just don't know where to start. They're so deep in it that they don't even know where to start. Where would you tell your colleagues to start with creating boundaries? How would that conversation look, and what should they do?
I think the first thing they need to look at a normal week, right, and
Yeah.
be honest. It's almost like when you are working with a financial advisor to achieve the goals you need to achieve. You have to be completely transparent and say, "Look, here's all the information on the table," right? And you have to be honest, because if you're not going to see the outcomes or reach the goals.
Right.
So I think they have to start off with evaluating their time, like really evaluate their time. See if they're giving more time to social media versus their devotion. All right. Do they have a system in place to navigate their day? And so, and not until they really look at where their time is going, will they be able to put in those boundaries. And the boundaries have to be realistic. You can't say, well, I'm not this, I'm not that, if you don't have a system in place.
Right.
Um, One of the things I would suggest to them, I don't know for Droid users, but I know for Apple users, for iPhones, one of the things they can start off by doing is setting,
Not disturb.
right? So, Not Disturb is on from 9 p.m.
Yeah.
to 9 a.m.,
Yeah.
except for 3, 4 people,
Yeah.
right? None of those 4 people that can get through are connected to the church.
Yeah.
Um, because here's the truth of the matter. If the house burns down, you might want to call the fire department before calling me.
Absolutely.
Right. And I say that not in a like distance way or no, but it's the truth,
It's the
right? Like
truth. Yeah.
what in most emergencies is the pastor going to do?
Pray. That's about it.
Right. But even right, let's say someone died, you still might want to call the funeral home.
Yeah.
There's several other calls
Yeah.
that you need to make.
Yeah.
And if it happens in the middle of the night, the person is not going to be any less dead than
Right.
9 a.m. And I hope your listeners hear me. I'm
Yeah.
not There's not needs. What I am saying is that between a certain time and a certain time, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. You can't bring them back to life. That
No,
happened with When my father passed, he passed at home, and it was in the middle of the night. And we didn't call, well, I didn't call the pastor until maybe 10 or something in the morning.
Right. On behalf of your pastor at that time, I thank you on his behalf,
Right.
right? So, but the thing is, we have to be more realistic about managing our expectations,
Ooh,
because
I like that.
expectations also help you maintain your boundaries.
Right.
What do you expect from me? What do you expect from me? Not as the pastor, right? And I think we have to remove titles so members can understand it. I shared with my deacon board last Saturday. I am a human being
Yep.
with human feelings, emotions, all that good stuff, right? And so, and I shared, I think sometimes the members forget that, and I can't allow you to forget it,
Right.
because the minute they forget that, they won't respect your boundaries.
Yep.
They won't respect what you're trying to do. And let me say this, it's harder to implement boundaries if people have been running rampant for so long. Because
Oh,
they're going to interpret your boundaries that you're putting in place to save yourself, to maintain your mental real estate, right? They're going to interpret it as, why are they trying to be funny? Why are they trying to be standoffish?
yep.
And the stuff that they're going to
So
come
true.
with there in their mind because it's inconvenience to them, right? But they'll be okay, because here's the thing, right? So I'm an avid golfer. One of my boundaries, I said, listen, I don't answer the phone while I play golf.
Absolutely.
I said, I answer the phone for one person on this planet, the whole planet. I answer the phone for one person while I'm playing golf. Okay. Um, Outside of that, you get a call, but you'll get a call back not after I play golf, but after I've played golf and I've enjoyed the 19th hole of fellowship. Uh,
Right.
right. And for my golfers out there, they understand the semantics of the 19th hole of fellowship. Uh, because they don't answer the phone if they're bowling. They don't answer the phone if they're playing cards. If they go to the casino, they're not going to stop what they're doing to answer my phone call. They're not.
Absolutely not.
It's been proven,
Right.
right? So, for those people in clergy and ministry trying to implement boundaries, start off by evaluating your time. Be realistic about where you can place those boundaries. Have an open conversation with your leaders, right? Because your leaders um, can help you maintain those boundaries. For example,
Absolutely.
my staff minister and executive minister have clearly defined roles in the life of the church. I've said publicly, if your issue is with XYZ, go to them. Don't come to me first, right? Um, because they can help you manage, they can help navigate, they can provide insight. They're equally gifted. They've been equally called. They're ordained. They love the Lord. They know Jesus, and they understand the life of the church. Now, in order for that to work, we have to have a system in place. So I meet with them every other Tuesday. Every other Tuesday, 10 a.m. We have standing meetings. So we can all catch up, debrief what's going on in the life of the church. You have to have systems in place to have effective boundaries.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So true. And I guess several months ago I was working with, I hate to say white church, but it was church predominantly white folks, and the pastor's white, and they have that. Most of the ones that I've worked with, they have that. They have a team, they meet with their team, the pastor has time off, it's communicated, discussed, and planned throughout the year. They have Sundays where the pastor's just off and going on vacation, and you do not talk to them. She or he has contacts that you will need to refer to when they are gone.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening often in the Black church. And it's kind of
And
like what you mentioned earlier.
I'm seeing it a little more now. I'm 51. And again, I'm not a lifelong, um, I didn't grow up in any National Baptist Convention. I didn't grow up in a denomination that, you know, had all of these formal structures and da 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 da, going to this convention, going to this conference, doing this, doing that. So I don't really subscribe to it. Uh, I do make sure for those members who do that we maintain our relationships, our associations, and things of that nature for them to do it. It's not that I don't. Um, I respect their commitment to it. Right. I'm not going to not allow them to participate or any of that. Just know that's not what I do.
Right.
And my background is so different. Um, I, I share a little differently. And so to be 51 and see some other, more of the 50 and below pastors have a better grasp on taking time off, getting away, unplugging, disconnecting, right? It's the 50 and older that I believe have the most trouble with trying to navigate that. Um,
Yeah, that's true. I will say I've spoken to, so I'm 50. I just turned 50 this year. And I did grow up in the AME church, and it's bad.
oh yeah,
It's really bad. And we have, to your point, all I would say probably 98% of the bishops are in their 70s.
there's no reason,
Right.
none. So
None.
my bridging pastor, I was ordained through American Baptist Churches USA. So a national ordination, and their process was very intentional. So I had to complete um, psychological assessments and emotional readiness um, with psychiatrists and psychologists for 3 days in
That's
Boston.
awesome.
And they had to generate a report stating that I was emotionally fit to enter pastoral ministry. Okay. So part of that process, I had a bridging pastor, Bob Santelli. I'll never forget him. Bob Santelli. We met for lunch, right? Because he was clear. 5 o'clock, he needed to be home, and right. So whenever we met, it was for, and it wasn't even for full lunch. It was just for like tea and like cake. Okay. And I'll never forget what he said. He said to me, see, Donald, listen, because at the time he was 61, 62, 62. He retired at 61. Um, I was in my 30s. And this is what he said. He said, Donald, be done with this by 63 years old.
Come on now.
He said, be done. He said, make sure, he said, put a plan in place for by the time you're 63, you should be walking away.
Oof.
I'm not getting down on anyone who's pastoring into their 70s and 80s. That's not what I'm doing. But what I am saying is this. My friend, my frat brother, great preacher, Reverend Dr. James Perkins out of Detroit, Michigan, preaches a sermon, knowing when to give the benediction.
You know what?
So I know when I'm giving the benediction to
Right.
pastor. If I still get preaching invitations, may God be praised.
Right.
If not, may God be praised.
Absolutely.
And what I do is I will still adjunct, teach anatomy and physiology, neuroanatomy, and play as much golf as I possibly can. And I will adjunct to support my golf addiction.
Right.
Uh, right. So, but you have to know when to give the benediction.
Yes.
Two, I don't know how effective you can be. You might think you're being effective.
Now, see, that's the real question. Are you effective?
Right. Right. There's a reason NFL and NBA players traditionally don't play into their 40s.
Right.
You statistical outliers, right? You have some people who do. They don't do it well because even the GOAT, Tom Brady, is demonstrating publicly that what Mother Nature gives you, Father Time takes away.
Come on now.
So you have to know when to give the benediction. The problem is most pastors, most clergy fail to plan.
Now, see, that's the real problem.
Yeah. So they don't take care. They burn themselves out in the process. And then when they get to the end of the road, they don't have anything to show for it. In a lot of cases, the families have been fragmented as hell because they mismanaged. And then they get to this supposed finish line and they don't even know how to cross it.
Right. I don't even know. You know what? I feel like I need to send you an offering because
Yeah,
that was a whole message. That was a whole message. Thank you for saying that, sir.
yeah.
So I imagine you already have your plan in place. You're going to be chilling on the 19th hole.
Frequently.
I love that. I love that. And thank you again for sharing that. I hope you have freed some of our listeners because it is a needed conversation. Before I hit record, you were talking about using I think you said Google Voice. You have a Google Voice number?
So one of my boundaries is I have I'm not a pastor to carry two cell phones, right? No, you what you need to do is make the people respect your boundaries. And what I mean by make the and now honestly, if well, I'm on my phone right now, I have over 300 members in my phone. I have way more than 300 members. Like, I'll be very clear. But I have in my phone that have access to this phone because I've had the same cell phone number, I don't know, for the past 20 plus odd years.
Yeah.
So when I was a student at Mount Carmel, I developed relationships with the members when I was Donald the student.
Right.
Right. So over the years, I developed more relationships, not knowing that one day I would end up pastoring
Yeah.
the same congregation. But I can say very rarely has any of the members misused that accessibility. Okay, rarely.
Right.
So I have a Google number that rings to my cell phone. It has this different voicemail setting, it has different text messages, the whole 9 yards. It's clearly a whole separate, and that number rings, but it typically goes straight to voicemail. Because that helps me manage things where I don't feel bombarded,
Right.
where I don't see a lot of numbers on my text messages or cell phone or like missed call, because studies have proven just seeing those numbers increase are overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I have the Google number to help manage accessibility, but also manage expectations. Um, and I'll say, you know, I probably won't return your phone call or your, like, I'm not doing it like that.
Right.
I'm just not. Because if you do, you set the precedence that you're just sitting there waiting to respond. And that's not the case. I mean, it's not the case.
Right.
And I hope and pray that your listeners hear me. I'm not saying be uh, aloof. I'm not saying um, don't allow accessibility. What I am saying is that you need to manage it in a way that meets your needs.
Exactly.
And that meets your needs. But having that separate phone number, one, it does give you that connectivity to the conversation. Uh, and it helps maintain and in some cases foster relationships.
Yes.
It does. But again, you have to be responsible with managing that. Um, and I've said it jokingly now. When some people I say, "Oh, no, I'm gonna give you my actual cell number," right? But even then, I say, "But it's still my cell number."
Right.
So that I pay the bill on,
Right.
right? Cell number that I had before I got here. I've only been pastoring 8. I've had the cell number for 22, 23 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think clergy needs to, some people feel they need to have 2 phones. I can't,
Yeah.
but I think they should still have systems in place where people aren't using these as electronic and digital leashes to,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so,
Ugh.
and you have to
Mm.
communicate to, and not just members, but like most pastors, they are involved in civic engagement. There's certain things, and pastor in the city of Philadelphia, which is in a constant flux of politicking.
Yeah.
You have to also manage them as well, because it's not just the church that will co-opt your time. There's politicians. Well, I need for you to do. No,
No, you don't.
you have to. No, I don't have. I don't have to do anything.
Right.
Um, be you, be your authentic self. So I am a hoodie sneaker type guy. I have Gucci's and red bottoms and blah 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 blah. But day to day,
Right.
first in the summer, I might be in shorts with flip flops and a t-shirt.
Come on now.
And I have tattoos. Okay, so when they have these public civic engagement breakfasts, first of all, it's too early in the morning, so I'm tired. The first time I showed up in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt or jeans and a hoodie,
How dare he?
right? But over time, they got used to it because I intentionally
Yeah.
show myself everywhere I go.
Right.
Right.
I love that.
Setting boundaries, you have to be intentional. Taking care of your mental health, you have to be intentional, because you have to do that for you. You have to show up. It's not about what people think, because they're going to think what they think.
Right.
You still maintain your peace. They may not understand it. You still maintain your peace.
Yeah.
They may not like it. You still maintain your peace. And you have to maintain your peace at all costs.
Mm, mm, mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna have to send you an offering because
And
you're preaching.
So I said when we were off before we started recording, I'm right now. I'm in North Carolina. My mother had some acute health challenges, so I got up Wednesday morning. I drove down 2:30 a.m.
Yeah.
6.5 hour drive from Jersey, where I live, to Raleigh, North Carolina, where my mom lives, and a couple of my siblings. So, fifth Sundays, this is something else pastors need to hear. Fifth Sundays, I reserve for associate ministers because I used to be an associate. So I know what it's like to need opportunities to preach.
Right.
Um, so this is a fifth Sunday coming up.
Yeah.
But the associate minister that was slated to preach was in a car accident and suffered a concussion.
Oh, man.
So I was like, ooh, all right. So I'm going to preach. But then my mom gets sick.
Yeah.
So that has interrupted preaching prep. Even if I revisit a sermon, which is what I was going to do,
Right.
but even that requires preaching prep.
Exactly.
And this is what it means to have the right people around you. I let the chair of my deacon board informed him, chair of my trustee board informed them, right? Listen, this is where we are, blah, 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 blah. I informed the associates, da, 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 da. Everyone's immediate response was first and foremost, make sure you're present, be present for your mother.
Right.
Everything up here is going to be fine. Don't worry about that. All right. The associates, the two executive minister and staff minister, listen, one of us will preach. And I've been fortunate, but like I said, if you all are not familiar with the Reverend Dr. Willette Virgie Bryant, y'all need to Google her. She's a professor of homiletics. She can preach, will preach, and has preached, and will preach the hair off a billy goat. So she's preaching on Sunday. And you have to have that because most pastors would feel, oh, if I can just,
Yeah.
My mom's good.
Yeah.
Right. And even though my plan is to be back for Sunday, I'm not preaching. I'm not preaching Sunday.
Good.
And you have to know that it's okay for you to navigate and manage your life.
Yes. It's okay. And honestly, it's required if you want to have a life.
Oh, listen, I saw you. Rest is not an expense; it's an investment.
It's an investment. Yeah. It is an event. Oh. Mm, 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 mm. I don't even know where. Like, I think I'm just done. Like, you have truly preached. You have truly preached today, sir. We are at an hour, and I promise I was going to let you get out of here so you can be with your mom. But is there anything else you would like to leave for your colleagues?
This is what I'm going to share, right? My pastor. Now, my predecessor, my pastor, the late Reverend Dr. Britt Armando Stargell, died unexpectedly at 46 years old. Pastored right at 20 years. It was a little over 19 years. And what I saw in that, I saw a congregation and members. And this wasn't all the members, I'll be clear. They responded or acted as if he'd only been there one day. Right? Not all. My predecessor pastored 47 and a half years. Both his sons passed. And I said all that to say this. I've seen two give their all. Right? And again, not all the members, but enough.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The way they responded in some instances, I'll be clear.
Yeah.
It confirmed for me. It validated, it sealed the deal that I am going to live my life now.
Right.
I'm going to live it, like they say, preach the gospel simple, full, and free. Right? I'm going to live my life um, devoid. Now I'm going to be very clear. I'm not going to go out and just do all kind of ungodly stuff. No, no.
Okay.
Devoid of what people think, say, or do.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if any of the listeners, as pastors and clergy, die today, within 6 months, they will be a memory.
Yep.
And I just hope that prior to you becoming a memory in the life of someone or the mind of someone, that you've lived your life, that you've enjoyed life.
Right.
Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly, not restrictively, not begrudgingly, not struggling, not worrying. Enjoy your life.
Right.
Set your boundaries.
That's right.
Manage your expectations.
Mm.
Maintain your peace. Put yourself first.
Yes.
Self-care is not selfish.
Exactly.
It is required. It is required.
Absolutely.
I
And
pray your listeners are blessed by our time together. I'm just a country boy from Wilmington, North Carolina. And so I hope I've said something that helps.
you did. You did. You definitely did. Thank you so much, Dr. Pastor Donald. I mean, I am speechless. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Um, mcbcphilly.org. MCBC Philly is our website, our YouTube channel, our Facebook page. I'm Pastor RDP9 on Instagram and Twitter, but and I'm just Donald D. Moore on Facebook. Just Donald D. Moore
Perfect.
on titles and stuff. My mama,
Perfect.
but my mama don't call me Donald, but I'm just simple country. So
I get it. I listen, like I said, you have truly preached. I appreciate you continuing to come on despite what you have going on in your personal life. So I do appreciate you so much. And I am going to put links to all of that you just mentioned in the description box. But thank you again.
thank you for
I
having me.
I am just speechless. So that is all today, everyone. Let me know what you think about this podcast. Please reach out to Pastor Donald as well. And that is all. I'll see you next time. Bye.